So last night I went out to El Rey Theater and got to experience one of the more intriguing, I would say unorthodox shows that I've been to in a while. It kind of reminded me of a mixture of a bunch of different things that I love, going all the way back to the 70s. Gotye performing, and how was the experience last night, actually?
It's great. Yeah, show felt really good. Great audience.
Is it weird because you obviously have an accent, which is Australian, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah.
And I was talking to my friend who went with me, and I was like, is it weird that he's here in America? Because I would be so excited to go to Australia. I mean, is it cool that you get to travel the world with what you do?
Yeah, places I never really thought I'd spend a lot of time. It's my 4th time in LA. I still haven't seen a lot.
You don't get any time to go do fun things? You got to prepare for the show?
I went up Runyon Canyon the other day, but I had to fit it into 45 minutes. So it was kind of like I walked about halfway up with some friends. We got a decent view. And we're like,
you just got the allergy part of it and none of the view of it.
Actually, it was pretty funny. I had a totally LA experience. Like a runner on the way back down asked my drummer Michael to turn off his cigarette. He stopped us and was like, "Excuse me, could you turn that off, please?" And Michael's looking at Siri going, "You talking about this? Turn that off?"
Turn it off.
"Turn it off, please. Thank you. There's no smoking here. Thank you."
Wow.
I was like, okay, this is an LA experience apparently.
Super LA.
Yeah.
The experience I had last night, completely different. When you go to a Gotye show, I don't know if you saw, did you see the guy that had he had a picture, a painting?
Oh,
up
yes.
in the air?
I met him afterwards, Brian.
Yeah. That's right. And what was that about? He was inspired by your music, I think.
Yeah,
from what I understand.
he's a fan and he loves a song and he loves listening to my music while he paints. He was inspired to, do a kind of tribute, scene from the video, and he wanted to show it to me. It was great. He asked me to sign it, took a few photos.
And it fit perfectly into the show because what you have going on behind you, along with all these musicians who play a zillion different instruments on stage, is it's like a cartoony backdrop that just goes through some messages or whatever. And I literally for a second was trying to figure out if this Brian guy who had a painting up was just part of your show. Like do you just have people hold up paintings?
Just subtly insinuate people into the audience.
Well, is it? But that's what I'm wondering. Is it more than just the music for you when you're performing? Does the graphics in the background and other things, do they come into play to make the experience you want?
Yeah, and I mean, I'm ambitious to try and create a show for later in the year that's more immersive, that kind of combines those visuals, gives them more dimensionality, that's more than just being on a rectangular screen, that I think, starts to head towards costuming and makeup and lighting that really combines to create a whole world you enter when you come to one of my shows. So I think it's already on the way there, because I've commissioned all these different Australian animators to create unique pieces for each song, almost each song in the set. And so yeah, it's a big part for me of, what I think is an interesting live show, just more visual stimulation and more of a kind of context, color-wise and, movement-wise.
Has it evolved for you over the years? Where did you start as opposed to where you are now?
Well, I mean, when I put out my first record in Australia 2003, and I spent about 6 months getting a 10-piece band together. We managed to do 2 shows in Melbourne, and there was no way I was going.
That's a big band, right?
I couldn't pay. Yeah, well, I've been playing shows with a 10-piece band in Australia on the recent tour. I just can't quite afford to bring that over to LA yet.
Sure.
So hopefully, by the end of the year, I'll be bringing over the full band, where there's horn players, extra vocals, extra percussion, all sorts of trinkets.
Well, last night we all got to sing a lot. What was the song? Save Me, maybe? Is that where everybody jumped in?
There were
right?
3 songs in a row. I asked everybody to help us out. So.
Yeah, which was actually really fun, and I made sure that the people around me were doing their part. And a couple times I had to do the girl parts because I was like, these girls are just not stepping up to the plate. They were immersed in the music.
Nice.
So it did become a fan experience, and that's what I thought was so intriguing, because I was just introduced to you recently, and I was super happy to be, but I was almost ashamed that I didn't know earlier, because I really do love the album.
Cheers.
It's Making Mirrors is in my car right now. I've been listening to it nonstop since I bought it a week and a half ago. But the new single, which is Somebody That I Used to Know, is just a complete mind trip. The whole time there's something different that happens. I feel like every 45 seconds something surprises you. And what's the background of that song? What was it based on?
I mean, lyrically, it's kind of a reflection on elements of multiple relationships I had probably over the course of maybe 15 years. Mm-hmm. Combined with an element of fiction and embellished. And
sure.
So,
but was there a moment that inspired you and you said, I just have to get this out in music right now?
As with much of my stuff, it comes from sounds first. I play with samples, I play with synthesizers, I collect sounds from field recordings and things. And when sort of certain collisions happen and there's a certain break or a little loop or texture that really catches me, it's when, for some reason, it really kind of undeniably puts me in a certain headspace, as happened with this tune, where that first guitar loop that starts Somebody That I Used to Know.
Just this.
Yeah. That, for some reason, had this hypnotic, loping quality. It put me in a melancholic sort of headspace. And
it really did.
The lyric flowed from there somehow.
There were a few songs like that. We would, last night during the show, we would catch the whole group around us, including including myself, like somebody would just hit me and they'd be like, I was just like in a trance. And I was like, you just woke me up out of that trance. Because the music, you just get into it and you really are, it's an intriguing, I hope people go buy the whole album because I really want you to hear what I heard from Gotye. And if you love somebody that I used to know, which every single person does, and they like find me on Facebook to tell me about it, you're going to love the whole album. But I totally forgot. Oh, I was going to ask you, how many instruments do you play?
Not a huge amount. I play the studio mainly. You know, I love manipulating sound, and there's just the more interesting ways you can find to kind of interface with either a piece of technology or, you know, whether it's an obscure old acoustic instrument to create something that's a bit idiosyncratic. That's kind of my main interest in making records that sound, I don't know, just unique to me.
Is there one sound that starts off the process for you usually?
There's usually a break from a record, or there's, you know, like for one song off the record called Eyes Wide Open, I was in the outback of Australia, 2008. It was a while ago now, and I chanced upon this thing called the Winton musical fence, which is a huge, it's almost like a massive bass guitar. It's these 5 metal strings strung up for like 50 meters in one direction and then in an L shape 50 meters in the other. Awesome. And it's like this community project that this percussionist from Melbourne was commissioned to make.
It's just out in Melbourne,
just
somewhere?
Out in this plateau. No, not in Melbourne. It's like 400,
in the wilderness,
400 kilometers from Brisbane, from the next major city.
Okay.
So it's in a little town called Winton, you know, population probably like 20 or something.
This is where like a creepy movie happens.
Oh, there's probably
everybody
been some
plays
filming
their
done
guitar
in Winton
after the sacrifice or whatever. You're lucky to have made it out of there. Good thing you told them you were going to spread the word about the instruments.
Yeah, it was that kind of vibe. It was like I had no idea about this instrument. Someone at the motel was just like, you're a musician, right? Have you heard of the musical fence? I'm like, wow, that sounds intriguing. I had to go out there. So yeah, I sampled all sorts of different ways of playing it, you know, striking it, plucking it, and then, you know, manipulated those different samples into a bass line for one of the tracks. So, you know, it's those instruments I love to play.
This is what you need to experience. When you listen to Gotye, you'll hear all these different, I mean, I'm sure everybody will have different favorites. I love In Your Light is one of my favorite songs, but honestly, just listen to the whole album. It kind of takes us back to the day where a single was irrelevant and the whole album is what you have to experience to get probably the message or the vibe that you would want from a piece of music like that. So
yeah, well, I still care for records. Some people don't, you know, treat records just as a bunch of songs that, you know.
People that actually, I'm being judgmental. I like people that write their own music. I like people that write music. I like people that have a reason for the music, and I think those people still care about records. So. Dude, I love it. And thank you for the show last night. We've got some pictures and videos up at 104.3myfm.com. Always can listen to somebody that I used to know. Definitely should check out Making Mirrors, the whole album for yourself from Gotye.
Thanks, man.